Okay, good afternoon. Advanced education. I'm currently redeployed to the SPSA to help out with communications here. Please note, we're recording the call today, and the recording will be posted to the SPSA social media channels and YouTube following this call. Today, the SPSA will provide a technical overview of the wildfires in the province. Joining us are Premier Scott Moe, the Honourable Eric Schmalz, Minister of Government Relations, and SPSA's President and Fire Commissioner, Marlo Pritchard. We do have a hard stop at 2 p.m., so we will ask members of the media to ask one question. Please keep it to one question when you're called upon. If we have remaining time, we will circle back, we'll go through. We'll start with the media that are in the room, and then we'll move over to the media that are joining us virtually. With that, I will turn it over to the Premier.
Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'll be quite short in the comments that I have. As Minister Schmalz and the President of the SPSA, Marlo Pritchard, will update on the current fire situation as well as a number of communities that they, alongside Minister McLeod, had the opportunity to visit yesterday and talk to not only community leadership but the evacuees that are in some communities returning home. We are in a stronger position today than we have been in previous days. Much of that is due to the effort and the work of our firefighters on the ground, whether they be the wildland firefighters or whether they be the local and municipal firefighters and volunteers from across the province that are in Saskatchewan communities, essentially saving many northern communities as well. So excellent work from all of those crews. And let me just say a thank you to not only everyone on the front line, including the municipal leaders, including the community leaders and volunteers that are there, but in particular, thank you to all the firefighters, the wildland firefighters through the SPSA, those from other provinces, but also our municipal fire departments that are the last line of defense for communities across the north, and have literally saved our towns and have saved our communities and saved, in many cases, family homes in places like Creighton, Larange, Airange, and Lac La Ronge. So thank you so very much for your effort the last number of days. There has also been extra work that has been done by SaskPower, SaskTel, as well as many contractors alongside those crews to ensure that we're able to restore communication and power service to communities, as that is an essential before we are able to advise the community leadership that it is safe to return. But the work doesn't end. The work doesn't end with people returning to their home. The work will go on for weeks and literally go on for months as we see far too many homes that have been lost and people do not have a home to go to. And so those families will need to be, we will need to work with closely to support in that period of time. And we'll need to work with closely as we support the rebuilding of those homes and ultimately the rebuilding of those communities. We have some work to do and to continue to do to ensure that we're able to administer the $500 additional support, evacuation support to families that did have to evacuate their communities, and working closely with our municipal leaders and our chiefs and council in First Nations communities to ensure that that can be distributed sooner rather than later. As well as our firefighters continue to work on hotspots and flare-ups. We have had some rain in large portions of the north, not all, but large portions of the north, and that is very, very helpful in addressing the wildfires, but the fight continues, and literally in many cases these fires will be to some degree active throughout the summer. And I think Marlo will speak more to some of the Type 3 resources, the Type 3 firefighting resources that are being brought on to do some of that work now. So in large, what I would say is today and yesterday are a much more positive day than what we've had in the past. We have many families, if not over half of families that were evacuated are able to return home or have already returned home in the last 24 hours. I think of, people in the Peter Ballantine communities, the Tri-City communities, being able to return to their home. And hopefully in the next number of days, there'll be more communities added to that list and more families that will be able to return home. So that work continues in the short term. and then there will be much work that happens over the next number of weeks and months as well. So who's next? Minister Schmalz?
Yeah. Thanks, Premier. As the Premier alluded to, over the past 2 days, I joined Minister McLeod and Marlo Pritchard to visit several communities that have been impacted by the wildfires. Yesterday, we had a very powerful experience witnessing the devastation in Creighton, Denair Beach, Pelican Narrows, Wahakwan, and the tri-communities of La Ronge, Air Ronge, and Lac La Ronge. I want to thank the frontline firefighters, volunteers, community members. They all showed true heroism in their efforts to protect those communities. Albeit there were some losses, they could have been far worse had those people not been there and stepped forward. We were inspired by the optimism and the devotion of the community leaders we met with. They were people that we'd connected with previously, and in some cases meeting for the first time under some very trying circumstances. And we appreciate their leadership and their efforts in repatriating their communities going forward. There are 34 communities that are going to be starting the repatriation process or are repatriating already. When we were in Creighton, we had the privilege of meeting with the SPSA crews and hearing their stories of how they've been fighting these devastating wildfires. We also met with Creighton Town Council members, Jen Johnsgaard and Darren Grant, and we heard firsthand what the impacts the wildfires had on their communities. In La Ronge, we had the important discussions with the tri-community leaders, La Ronge Mayor Joe Herdisky, Air Ronge Mayor Julie Baschuk, and Chief Tammy Cook-Searson of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. And today we went to Canada Lake, where we met with Deputy Mayor and Village Councillor Hugh Carvin and CAO Brent Lutz and Fire Chief Jim Arnold. We are pleased to share that as of this morning, their council, in consultation with the SPSA, has publicly advised that Canada Lake residents will be lifting their voluntary evacuation advisory and local emergency, and that the Shoe Fire is no longer a threat or immediate threat to that community. As of 5 p.m. today, we are also announcing that we will be lifting the ATV-UTV ban. So that's going to be happening today, although the provincial fire ban will remain in place for the designated areas. On Wednesday, the province announced that we will be providing emergency funds to those displaced due to ongoing emergency. All residents over the age of 18 who have been evacuated from their primary residence will receive $500 in financial assistance. Since the announcement, there has been a significant number of inquiries when these funds will be administered by their communities. Minister McLeod and I have been speaking directly with community leaders about how these funds will be dispersed. And we understand that there's some challenges for the local leadership to be able to do that effectively. The SPSA will be working directly with the community leadership to support the disbursement of these funds to their residents in whatever way the community chooses in order to reduce the burden on them and their administration. We thank the leaders of all the affected communities for their willingness to collaborate on how these supports are provided to the impacted families and individuals. I will now turn it over to Marlo Pritchard for his comments.
Thanks, Minister. I'll give just a wildfire briefing overview of where we are today, and then be happy to take any questions. So as of today, we have 20 active wildfires. 6 are not contained. To date, we have 259 wildfires, well over the 5-year average of 148 as of this date. We can confirm that we have confirmed 400 values have been burnt in the wildfire, and those activities to continue to verify properties burnt will continue over the coming weekend into next week, and we know that that number will increase over the coming days. We're seeing hopefully another break in the weather. We are mostly cloudy and cool today. In the coming days, and we're also forecasted for much of the province some much needed rain into the weekend. So over the last number of days, we've shifted from a defensive approach to an offensive approach into taking on these wildfires. We've also hired approximately 140 Type 3 firefighters to assist our Type 1s and Type 2s, and we will be bringing on more in the coming weeks as they're identified to help us solidify the fire lines and do some mopping up and really stabilize the position moving forward. Right now, they're focusing on hotspots and trying to reduce the risk of flare-ups and continuing to monitor perimeters on all of our fires. In regards to the evacuations, as the Minister mentioned, I'm really happy to report that the majority of our previously evacuated communities have begun repatriating or have repatriated. Today, Narrow Hills Provincial Park has announced that they will be repatriating. Right now, there's approximately 10,300 that have either returned or in the process of returning. What I do want to clarify that some of the communities will be returning over a number of days, so it takes time to move that many people. SPSA has seen 760 of their evacuees returned. And we do know that there are numerous self-evacuated. They're still staying with family and friends, so I can't really tell you how many are still out from those that self-evacuated. But we are hearing, stories that individuals that self-evacuated are starting to return on their own. And we're going to continue to work with those affected communities through this repatriation process. And we also recognize that those returning will face some very unique challenges. Some mixed emotions, and I just want to remind all the community members that are going home that there are a number of organizations that can help with the mental health, the impacts of returning into a situation like this, whether you've lost property or friends have lost property, and you can access those mental health resources on the Saskatchewan.ca. There's a number of avenues there. We still have 5 communities that are still remaining under evacuation orders, and those are Creighton, Denair Beach, East Trout Lake, Whalen Bay, as well as the P1 and P2s in Cumberland House. I also announced earlier this week that we had a backlog in the 855 line and assisting with evacuations. I can say that the backlog has been absolutely 100% addressed. We are still doing callbacks and helping with registrations, and that is continuing over the number of days. But those that call the 855 line now will be either dealt with immediately or within 24 hours. And that is really a thanks to pulling in resources from across government, especially social services, that really helped us man the phone lines and really reduce that backlog very quickly. We are, as the Minister mentioned, we are going to be working with community leaders to help distribute the $500 that Premier Moe announced earlier this week, and we will be in contact with those community leaders in the coming days. I also want to just remind everyone that we are also continuously working on the evacuation payments in regards to those that either self-evacuated or were entitled to other food vouchers or financial assistance. Those will be retroactive back to the date of the evacuation orders, and we are working with either getting the finances into hands as we speak, or they will be moved to a central location to be distributed over the coming week. And that's because we recognize that there is some uncertainty around Canada Post and the services, so we will be working with those communities directly so that we can ensure that those dollars are put in those hands that unfortunately had to evacuate and spend out-of-pocket dollars either with family or friends while they were out of their homes. I will also just take a moment in regards to speaking to the 30 fires that were intentionally set. We continue to assist or gather evidence that we can supply to our police services, and we ask for public assistance if they know anything of any of those intentional acts that were conducted or were started. If you know anything, please call Crime Stoppers or your local police of jurisdiction. And finally, just to echo the Minister's comment, the ATV ban will be lifted as of 5 p.m. today. The fire ban will remain in effect up to the Churchill. We will ask individuals that do have ATVs to please stay away from our active fire lines. We have a number of activities going on, staff working, so we would discourage or request that people stay out of those areas. And we will be reviewing the fire ban again on Monday. If we see substantial precipitation over the weekend, we may see that change, and that will be reviewed on Monday. And finally, to echo the Premier's comments, I would also like to thank all the fire services, the community members that have put so much effort into it and continue to put effort into this very trying time, this wildfire situation. Without the absolute determination and courage shown by so many in this province and supports after, we wouldn't be where we are today. So again, a heartfelt thank you to all of them. So with that, I'll turn it back to Brianna.
Okay, so we will turn to questions. So a reminder, we'll start here in the room, and then I'll head over to the computer to start looking at who has questions online. So, and please announce your name and your media outlet.
Michael Alexin, Prince Albert Daily Herald. So if this is more of a juxtaposition question, they're both big jobs, but is it the bigger job the chaos of the evacuation or the repatriation? Which is like the tougher angle?
They're both logistically challenging, but I can tell you the repatriation from an SPSA perspective can be much more organized because it's not under duress. We can do the timing properly, and we can ensure that the buses and the logistics behind that to get individuals back into communities are more coordinated.
Nigel, PA now. So I was talking to the national chief of the National Fire Chiefs Association, and for about 10 years they've been talking about the idea of having a national body that could like be a voice for the municipal and volunteer fire departments. Just wondering what your position is on that, because Ken McMullen said, I mean, they're expecting a higher fire load, record fire load again this summer. You mentioned the coordination effort in Saskatchewan could speak to that need of having a national body to represent, you know, the municipal and volunteer fire departments. Just wondering if you have a position on that discussion again. It's been going on for a while, but maybe it's come to the head again.
Do you have anything to add to that, Marlo? And I can as well.
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you, Premier. We already have a Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners are the appointed heads of each province. They represent or coordinate with the fire associations in the province. So we have a mechanism to pull information and data. Can it be expanded and enhanced with some federal commitment? I mean, we work with Public Safety Canada, so of course there's always room for improvement. But there is already a conversation on between the Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners with the federal government, and that will continue. And again, as we see the situation like this year, we will probably have more conversations in the coming months.
I would just divide that into 2 points. One would be to have representation and have conversations around the representation from a national level of the individuals that are fighting the fire, such as municipal, both volunteer and professional firefighters, our wildland firefighters, type 1, 2, and 3, everyone that is involved. And I think some of those representative bodies would be in place already today. And I would say with caution that we maybe should have a discussion with respect to supports in that space from a national perspective, or by the provinces and territories, at the very least, coming together through the various compact agreements that we have in that space. However, the caution I would have with that is, a national set of standards for a place like Toronto or Vancouver might be very different for what we would be looking for in a place like Creighton or the Tri-Cities in northern Saskatchewan. And so there always needs to be some flexibility in that space. And I would just say, again, with respect to our municipal fire departments, both volunteer and professional fire departments that were on the ground in those communities, of which there was many, they're the last line of defense in saving those communities in a fire that just simply couldn't be stopped as it approached the communities in the wildland setting. And whether it was those folks involved in backfires, and in the case of Creighton, fighting for days to save that community, literally every hour of the day for days. The standards are fine. Supports are necessary, and I think when it comes to the supports that we're providing our municipal firefighters, all of our frontline firefighters, that is going to be a continued conversation in the months ahead. I've said this before as well. And the second piece I would say to this is, and this has been a discussion at the Council of Federation table among the premiers. We've approached the federal government as to, should we have the discussion around having a core national air fleet, for an example, a core number of air tankers or air support, or even a number of wildland fighters that are available for, yes, this year in Saskatchewan and Manitoba and to some degree Alberta, but last year would have been the Northwest Territories down into British Columbia. We see some fires in British Columbia now starting to increase as we find our way through fire season this year. And should we have a discussion around, each of us contributing to a national fire fleet that could be then allocated through the compacts that are already in place to, further enhance the efforts that we have. There's some years where we actually, don't require the entirety of the air fleet that we have. This year, we needed all of it, times 2 or 3. And so the agreements are in place, and they're good agreements. And I think, Steve Roberts has spoken many times in Marlo to the advantage of being a signatory to various agreements to share those resources. But we could add to those resources as provinces coming together within the nation of Canada to have that core fleet that is then, allocated accordingly each and every year. I brought it up at our most recent First Ministers meeting. And I said, this is a discussion we should re-engage on, and Saskatchewan would certainly be, willing to, pull our part in it, both financially and as part of those discussions. So the agreements are already in place. It would just be a matter of adding the resources to the existing agreements.
Jasmine Polshay, CTVPA. Where's the highest concentration of firefighting resources in the province today, and why?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that because I don't have that with me. Sorry.
Where they need to be.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I think part of that has changed considerably in the last few days with the weather that has changed, and in fairness, some of the fuel around certain communities, the fuel load has changed. Some of it has been burnt, and our wildland guys and our municipal guys have saved many of those communities. So it changes day by day. I think it would be fair to say, Steve, on where the resources are, whether they be air resources or ground resources, and are we ever thankful for the work they're doing?
It can be hour by hour, actually.
Yeah.
Yep, so good.
Okay, so I do see we have a lot of hands up, so we will move on. We'll go until about 2:15 to give everybody a chance to ask their questions. So we'll start online here with Chris.
Thank you. Chris Vandenbrekel with Global News Saskatoon. I understand that you're saying that you're working with community leadership now on dispersing those $500 funds. Why does the province not handle it themselves, given how much is already on the local communities? The province has tax information, residency information, direct deposit information. Would it not be easier for the province to handle this?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so to correct a little bit of the preamble in your question there, the province does have some of that information. We do not have all of it. For people who are interacting with the provincial government in the financial sense, yes, we do have their banking information. But what we wanted to do was partner with the communities that were being evacuated, the local leadership there, because they know their communities. They know who was evacuated. They know where they may be staying and how to get a hold of them, the best way to get a hold of them. And we didn't want to approach this in a cookie cutter way. Every situation is going to be unique. We will work with those communities. As Marlo alluded to there, the SPSA, and I spoke to earlier, the SPSA will be there in a supportive role to help with the logistics and in administering this. However, we need the expertise of the local community to be able to provide these checks and convey these checks to their citizens who are being repatriated to their communities.
Okay, Aishwarya, sorry.
Good afternoon, Aishwarya Duda, CBC News. Just wanted to clarify something. SPSA said that most of the human fires are accidental, but 30 fires were set intentionally. Does that mean that they were acts of arson? And could you tell us a bit more about it, or what do you think of that?
What we do know that the majority of the fires this year were human caused. Some of them were unintentional, whether that was a campfire that got away, or ATV that started it, or a burning that was not properly monitored. But we also know that there have been approximately 30 fires that would indicate from the evidence and from, in some cases, even witnesses, that they were an intentional human act. So could they be an arson? That will require a investigation from the police services, but it was intentional to cause damage, and those files have been passed on to the police to investigate if there's evidence. We do know that at least 2 incidents have resulted in charges of individuals, arson charges of individuals, and we'll continue to look at investigate other fires over the coming weeks, just to ensure which ones were human caused but have an intentional element to it. But that's what we're asking for public assistance. We really do want to hold people accountable for acts of arson, use that word, but intentional acts. So if a community member does hear something, knows something, we would ask that they contact the police of jurisdiction or call our Crime Stoppers. And right now, there's, again, approximately 30 fires that we're looking at that would be an intentional start.
Mackenzie?
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Yes, this is Mackenzie Mazinkowski from Global News. Marlo kind of answered my initial question, which was, will evacuees who did not receive any financial support be reimbursed? And Marlo kind of indicated that is the case. So going off of that, how much will evacuees get back, and what kind of will the rollout for that look like? Because a lot of evacuees we've heard from over the past couple of weeks have concerns about the process and frustration with that. So yeah, just kind of seeking clarification on that, please.
Yes, the Premier announced earlier that the evacuees would be entitled to up to a maximum of $200 a day, $40 for the household, and $20 for individuals in that house, up to a maximum of $200. So each and every situation is different. So I can't give you an approximate amount, but it's tied into the date of evacuation and the date of repatriation. We're working with our teams and to speak with evacuees, those that have self-evacuated, to determine individual cases. As I can say, some of those those financial checks have already been handed out. They also have had in the past an opportunity to use food vouchers with the same value. And moving forward, we will be, if they're still out of their community, we will find a location close to them to ensure that they get the financial assistance or financial support that they are entitled. And if they have repatriated back to their communities, we will be identifying those communities and finding a central location in those communities to help distribute those checks in the coming days, coming week. So we are putting that together as quickly as possible and continue to work with those that are impacted and entitled to those financial supports.
Maybe we would add to that, Marlo. I was looking back to the 2015 occurrence that we had, where we had a larger number of people evacuated in 2015 than we did this time. But however, that, I believe, was the largest evacuation that the province has ever experienced. This would be second to that, and a very close second. And so there's a significant number of people that were evacuated, and there's a number of various lists, I guess you would say, with respect to who those evacuees are, where they are, and from what community they're from. And so what we have done prior to the announcement that we had made on the most recent support of adding $500 of investment to each of those families and individuals that has been evacuated was we're going to use every tool that we can to get those funds in their hands as quickly as possible, whether it be to support continued evacuation or to support them being able to return home, which does have some costs with it as well. This is on top of doubling the day rate that we had through the SPSA, and on top of the investment that we had provided to the Canadian Red Cross directly to support some of the fundraising efforts that they have alongside the federal government. We saw, the federal government commit to matching donations up to $30 million, the province of Manitoba involved, and the province of Saskatchewan providing $15 million as well to the Canadian Red Cross organization, as we have many in this province that are supported by their services throughout this evacuation, like we did in 2015. And so it's a whole of of effort, I think, across government and other organizations in providing the support that families need, and doing so using all of the tools that we have, including partnering with our municipalities where we can, of which Minister Schmalz and Minister MacLeod had additional conversations with a number of municipal and Indigenous leaders yesterday on how we can work together, and the goal is I think, absolutely aligned, is to have these funds and all the funds that are available in the family's hands as soon as possible.
Jeremy?
Hi there, Jeremy Symes with the Canadian Press. I'm just looking for exact timelines on when people will $100.
He cut out. I didn't mute him. His mic cut out.
Am I muted?
No, we're fine.
Jeremy, you've cut out.
Do I have to? Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you restart your question?
Yeah, just the $500. I'm just looking for specific timelines on when evacuees will see that money.
I would say as soon as possible, and we're using every effort to get them those dollars as soon as possible so that they can use them to support their family. And I would hope, sincerely hope, that it's days, not weeks. And we'll use every effort and partnership that we can. Those that are registered with the SPSA, we have those lists. Those that are registered with the Red Cross, we may be able to work with the Red Cross to access those lists to provide that support. But then we'll also work with the municipalities as well, as they also acutely know who lives there, who's a resident, and who had to evacuate. So there's really a number of levels of information that we will use. Not everyone registered that evacuated, and I think that's what Marlo refers to when he talks about those that have self-evacuated, but they may want to register now to receive some of the support. And so we're working on all of those fronts so that we don't leave anyone out, but also that we don't slow down the effort to get this into families' hands as soon as possible. So days, not weeks.
Tina?
Hi, it's Tina from PA Now, Pattison Media. We have heard how dependent, I guess, you guys have been on volunteer municipal fire departments and fighting these fires. But we were reading last year's census report from the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, and it talked about the dwindling number of volunteer firefighters, but also a growing gap in equipment replacement capacity that some fire departments are experiencing across the country. So it said like 9 in 10 fire departments have some involvement in wildfire response, but only half have the required equipment to meet the needs for wildfire season, and only 18% of fire departments benefited from the federal funding of wildfire equipment to the provinces and territories. Can you talk about that relationship in Saskatchewan and with the SPSA? Like, I guess the question would be like, what incentive do municipal and volunteer fire departments have to help?
It's a conversation that we've had with the Volunteer Firefighters Association over the last number of years, and in subsequent budgets, provincial budgets, I'll speak to. You've seen virtually in most, if not all, of the last subsequent years' budgets that we have been moving into further supporting our volunteer fire departments across this province, not just for the heroic efforts that they provided in saving northern communities in the last couple of weeks, but for the efforts that they provide every day in their community. We see in other years significant grass fires. For instance, we saw one in southern Alberta less than a decade ago that was, terribly tragic to many communities there as well. And we see them in areas of Saskatchewan, and these are the front lines of fire defense in our communities, and there are first responders as well in most of our communities. So, I think back to budgets in years gone by where we have increased some of the tax benefits for volunteer firefighters for them as they leave their job to go, whether it be to be a first responder or to address a fire in their community, or in this case, to address the fire for a number of days in a northern Saskatchewan community. There's been funding in the way of capital investments for those volunteer fire departments in communities across the province, new fire halls, as well as personal equipment. And I think that is something that we continue and we'll need to continue to have a conversation with their association and our municipalities and across the province that ultimately set up and fund largely the municipal fire departments we have is, can the provincial government play a larger role in ensuring that those that are volunteers not only are receiving a tax benefit when they go to work and save buildings and people, but have the proper and appropriate personal protective equipment so that their families know that when they go, that they are working with the latest and the best equipment to keep their family members safe. So there has been, I think, significant moves in recent budgets in supporting our volunteer fire department and the volunteers themselves. And I think that conversation needs to very much continue over the next number of months while, this most recent experience is fresh in everyone's mind. I can't say enough how effective not only our volunteer municipal fire departments, but the full-time or professional fire departments that we have how effective they were in saving a community like Creighton. Literally keeping up a fight with a fire that just won't quit and won't stop trying to come in and devour that community alongside Flin Flon. The effort that has been made in a community like Creighton and Flin Flon is nothing short of heroic.
Okay, Nicole.
Hi, yes, Nicole Garn with 980 CJME. With things improving, is there any possibility that the province could end the state of emergency a little bit early?
Well, we still have communities that are evacuated, and so that would be a decision that the SPSA will make when they can. But as it sits today, and I just spoke with the Premier of Manitoba this morning, ensuring our ministers are in touch on, what the next number of days look like for our shared community of Creighton and Flin Flon, and how we, ensure we're aligned with hopefully what will be people being able to go home in that community. And then we mustn't forget that there are people that lost their homes. And not that that's relevant to a state of emergency, but it is for them and it is for the province. And we're going to have to, chart some path on how they are supported in the weeks and likely months ahead until we can rebuild a community like Denair Beach or East Trout Lake. But you might have some more to add on that as we do see some of the measures being altered as recently as a few minutes ago with respect to ATVs.
As the Premier said, the state of emergency really allows for some extra powers if needed. And as Premier mentioned, that we still have a number of communities evacuated. We have some still dangerous situations, although we are seeing significant improvement in access, in power, in SaskTel. But there's still a lot of work to do in the coming days, coming weeks. But we will continue to assess that, and I'll assess that with my minister. And if the situation changes to the better faster than anticipated, those changes can be made. But at this point in time, the state of emergency or declaration of emergency remains.
Hannah.
Oh, thank you, Hannah Spray from CBC. You've talked about human-caused fires, but in regard to another way human activity contributes through human-driven climate change, for example, through burning of fossil fuels, you've been rolling back climate-related policies like the industrial carbon tax, coal-fired power plant phase-outs, energy efficiency standards. So how has this fire season caused you to reflect on the government's policies on fighting climate change?
I've been asked this question a number of times before, and my answer to it is we should, as a nation, and in particularly as in Saskatchewan, act on all 10 of the change in policy initiatives that I've put before our new Prime Minister. And here's why. The products that we're producing in Saskatchewan have a far lower carbon content than their counterparts in competitive products being produced in other areas of the world. For oil, our competitor for the kind of oil that we produce is largely Venezuela. Whether it's from an ethical perspective or a carbon perspective per barrel of oil, you should buy Saskatchewan oil, and that's largely why the United States of America does. When it comes to the agricultural products that we produce here, they often have half or even larger, more than half, or larger, have less than half of the carbon content of the next 7 largest producers around the world, and I've been through those numbers many times. Potash is half the carbon content of our competitors, which are Russia and Belarus, which have some ethical concerns as well. And so when it comes to what Saskatchewan is producing from a carbon perspective, we should produce more of it. And we should displace much dirtier products in other areas of the world that are having a much larger impact on climate change than what Saskatchewan products are. All the while, I agree with you, we need to be making every effort to reduce the carbon content of what we are producing in Saskatchewan, and ultimately eliminating, our carbon that is emitted into the atmosphere. And I think in many cases you're seeing Saskatchewan industries do that. The oil that's being produced by companies like Strathcona and Cenovus between North Battleford and Lloydminster, they've reduced their methane emissions by some 65% since 2015. I have asked many in media scrums and at many conferences as I've been at, find me another industry that has reduced their methane emissions by 65% since 2015, and I, to date, have not been able to find one. And so we should be very proud of what we're doing. We should produce more of it and displace dirtier products that are having an impact on climate change, and to your point, in some way have maybe contributed to the dry spring that we had and the challenges that we have in the north. Alongside that, when it comes to whether they're unintentional or most certainly intentional fires that are being lit, that needs to stop. The consequences of a fire, in particular in a spring like we have just experienced, without rain until recently, are the same. However, it starts. In this case, it's taken people's homes. Hundreds of families have lost their home. So regardless of how the fire starts, the consequences are severe.
Okay, Jillian?
Hi, Jillian Massey with 980 CJME. Why did the SPSA choose to lift the ATV ban and not more of the fire ban?
Thanks for the question. We assess the situations in regards to the precipitation that we've seen. We added the ATV ban after we put the fire ban in to further reduce the risk of human-caused fires. We have seen some precipitation on the last weekend. We continue to see cloudy, cool weather. And so, based on the totality of the situation, we believe that the risk for ATVs is been reduced, and those ATVs can be used safely, although with caution. Of those individuals that are using ATV, they should be using caution. But we have not removed the fire ban yet because there are still areas that are dry. We have had, again, some precipitation, and we're hoping for more, but we'll continue to monitor that over the weekend. And if we do get what's forecast over the weekend, you may see the fire ban adjusted further on Monday.
Okay, we'll take one more question. I know there's 2 follow-ups, but we're almost at time. So Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. This one's for either Marlo or Premier Moe. We've heard a lot of stories of people who decided to stay behind during evacuations to fight off fires from their own properties and from their neighbors' properties. What are your thoughts on the people who chose to do that and had some varying success?
Well, I think we want to say thank you for everyone's efforts to protect their community. We did see some community members stand up and stand shoulder to shoulder with the volunteer fire departments, SPSA staff, and work together to not only protect their own property but to protect their community. So that's to be acknowledged, the work, the sacrifices and the challenges that they faced. We also know that there was others that were not quite as successful, and they had to get evacuated or had to flee because they were unable to stop the fires as they approached. But what I would like to say is just a thank you. Thank you to everyone, because it was all of us pulling together to try to protect communities, protect family, and most importantly, protect lives. And to date, we have not lost any lives during this horrific season, or horrific start of the season. But there were some, I would say, close calls. We were able to do it safely, and no lives were lost. Unfortunately, we did lose some houses, and we saw structures burnt. Premier, would you like to?
Yeah, I would add to that as well, and reiterate the thanks on behalf of the province, not only for saving your own home, but I've read some of the stories as well where individuals stayed back and saved multiple homes and cabins in their community, and it again speaks to the heroic effort of individuals in those communities. Always make sure you have an escape route. We did not lose, and we're fortunate thus far in this fire season. We've not lost people directly to the fire. However, it's not to say at times there hasn't been people that have been missing, as the fire has encroached pretty quick on some communities. And so there's certainly been some tense moments, I think, for many within the SPSA and families, as well as communications have gone down from time to time and such. But it also, I think, speaks to the knowledge of people that live in the North and maybe visit the North frequently, is they know very well how to protect their home, their cabin, and their community. That's why when Marlo spoke of bringing 140 plus Type 3 firefighters on, with more to come in the days ahead as we find ourselves in a more manageable situation. Many of those, in addition to our Type 2 firefighters, have been trained over the last number of years with partnerships that I've spoken to with PAGC and other First Nations and Northern communities, and many of them live in a Northern or Indigenous community, and they know best how to how these fires act now that we've had some reasonable weather, and they know best how to protect their communities and put the fires out. And so thank you to them, and thank you to all the Type 3 firefighters that are coming on now.
Okay, that concludes today's media availability. Thank you everybody for coming and for tuning in, and have a good rest of your day.